The cold, sterile light of the Thaelor Grand Archive chamber reflected off the polished scales of Commander Xylos. His multifaceted eyes, each lens adjusting independently, were fixed on the primary data screen. Before him, an array of holographic projections pulsed with raw combat telemetry, captured from the recent Thaelor hegemony incursion into Sector 7G. This was standard analytical work, a detached examination of strategic failures and tactical successes. Yet, a particular dataset, labeled Ashfall Incident 009 Delta, had prompted his personal review. Ashfall was a desolate rock, barely a planet, valuable only for its unstable mineral deposits and as a staging point for fringe elements. Its atmosphere was a perpetual twilight of volcanic ash and silicate dust, pierced by the angry glow of thermal vents. The Thaelor, with their predictable, overwhelming force, had swept through the human outpost there, expecting minimal resistance. Their initial reports were of a swift and clinical operation, a simple mop-up, but the footage told a different story. The main display flickered, resolving into a grainy, thermal-optic view of Ashfall's surface. Jagged rock formations, perpetually shrouded in swirling plumes of superheated gas, stretched into an endless, ochre haze. Below, a contingent of Thaelor mechanized infantry, their exoskeletons gleaming dully, advanced in perfect formation. Their sensor arrays indicated residual human energy signatures, faint and dispersed. "A few remaining scavengers, Commander," droned sub-analyst Jainara, her voice a precise, synthesized cadence. "Standard mop-up protocol engaged. Probability of organized resistance, 0.003%. Xylos merely hummed, a low vibration in his chest cavity. His optical sensors zoomed in. A single human figure moved across the chaotic landscape. He was not in Regulation Alliance combat armor. Instead, he wore an assemblage of salvaged components, patched fabrics, and what appeared to be modified environmental seals. His movements were fluid, almost too casual for a combat zone as he navigated a treacherous ridgeline barely visible against the thermal backdrop. "A lone rogue," Jainara continued, "likely abandoned, attempting a desperate evasion. His energy signature is anomalous, highly inefficient power cells, improvised systems." The Thaelor advanced, their heavy treads churning the silicate dust. Automated reconnaissance drones, spherical and armed with pulse cannons, detached from the main force, fanning out with chilling efficiency. One drone locked onto the human's thermal signature. Its targeting array glowed green. "Target acquired. Engaging!" The Thaelor comms feed crackled through the Thaelor speakers. Xylos watched, his multiple eyes narrowing. The human, identified only by his designation, Kalen, did not react as expected. He did not seek cover, nor did he return fire. Instead, he moved towards a geologically unstable fault line. He seemed to be counting, his head cocked slightly, as if listening to the groaning planet itself. Just as the drone locked its final trajectory, Kalen dropped to one knee, swiftly embedding a small metallic spike into a fissure in the rock. The gesture seemed futile, meaningless. But the Thaelor analysis engines, already struggling to categorize Kalen's unconventional profile, registered an unexpected seismic perturbation. A low rumble began, deep within Ashfall's core. "An environmental anomaly," Jainara questioned, her voice betraying a hint of confusion. "Unscheduled thermal surge detected at Sector Gamma 4. The rumble intensified. The ground beneath the Thaelor drone bucked. Without warning, a column of superheated steam and corrosive ash erupted from the fault line Kalen had tapped, directly into the drone's flight path. The drone, designed for conventional combat, was not shielded against such a sudden, localized environmental weapon. Its optical sensors flared, its plating corroded instantly, and it spiraled, a smoking ruin, into a lava trench. The Thaelor ground commander bellowed orders, his voice a guttural snarl. Two more drones diverted, their targeting protocols overridden by the unexpected environmental hazard. Kalen, meanwhile, was already gone, melting into the swirling dust clouds, leaving behind only the echoing hiss of the collapsing thermal vent. Jainara's processing indicators flickered red. Uncategorized maneuver, the human utilized planetary instability as a localized defensive weapon. Probability of intentionality, elevated. Elevated? Xylos's primary eye focused on the sub-analyst. Explain! The timing was precise, Commander, the spike. It appears to have agitated a pre-existing fissure, triggering a controlled thermal release. Its energy signature suggests a rudimentary but highly effective localized seismic initiator. A primitive device, yet its application was sophisticated. Xylos leaned back, the scales on his neck rustling. Sophisticated or lucky, continue the playback. The Thaelor regrouped, sending in ground forces. Elite skirmishers, cloaked and armed with disruption rifles, moved to sweep the area. Kalen appeared again, a fleeting shadow against the incandescent backdrop of a lava flow. He was headed towards a critical Thaelor drilling platform, a colossal structure extracting Ashfall's valuable minerals. It was a suicide run, pure and simple. His trajectory is suicidal, Jainara stated, her voice returning to its dispassionate tone. Direct engagement with the Thaelor garrison is impossible. He will be neutralized within 37 cycles. Kalen ignored the warnings of impending elimination. He moved not with brute force, but with a fluid grace that defied the planet's hostile terrain. He scaled a sheer rock face that the Thaelor, in their bulky power armor, would have needed specialized climbing gear to ascend. He leveraged thermal updrafts to propel himself over treacherous chasms, using a modified wingsuit that looked like it had been scavenged from a discarded atmospheric shuttle. He was not simply traversing the environment, he was becoming a part of it. The Thaelor skirmishers struggled to keep pace. Their thermal vision, designed to penetrate conventional camouflage, was baffled by Kalen's ability to blend his own heat signature with the planetary background. He used the planet's natural thermal vents as cover, shifting his heat output to mimic a random geothermal anomaly. He was a ghost, a flicker on their advanced sensors. His thermal signature is fluctuating wildly, a Thaelor officer reported on the comms, his voice laced with confusion. It's blending with the ambient heat. We're losing him in the environmental noise. Xylos watched, captivated. This was not the chaotic, desperate flailing of a trapped prey. This was a deliberate, calculated dance with an entire ecosystem as a partner. Kalen was not fighting the planet, he was weaponizing it. One Thaelor skirmisher, more experienced than the others, managed to pinpoint Kalen's location through a brief lapse in his thermal camouflage. The Thaelor raised his disruption rifle, but Kalen, anticipating the move, didn't evade conventionally. He sprinted directly towards a cluster of dormant geothermal vents. As the Thaelor fired, Kalen unleashed another small, contained charge. A localized microseismic event, barely registered on the planetary Richter scale, rippled through the rock. It was enough. The dormant vents, already under immense pressure, roared to life, spewing geysers of corrosive superheated steam that engulfed the Thaelor skirmisher. The alien's screams were cut short as his advanced armor dissolved in the acidic cloud. The Thaelor analysis engines whirred, processing the data at blinding speeds. Jainara's voice, for the first time, held a note of genuine awe. Commander, the human is not merely adapting to the environment, he is manipulating it. Each action, no matter how seemingly minor, triggers a cascade of environmental reactions that benefit him directly and inflict maximum disruption upon the Thaelor. Xylos's optical sensors widened. So this is not a primitive rogue. This is a new form of extreme environment adaptive combatant. Unclear, Commander. His methods defy all known combat doctrines, both ours and the Cathar's. He uses the very forces of nature as his allies, turning a hostile environment into a weaponized arena. Jainara pulled up a historical database. There are no records of human military units specializing in this type of environmental integration. This Kalen, he is an anomaly. The footage continued. Kalen reached the periphery of the Cathar drilling platform. He was alone against a heavily armed garrison. The Cathar commander, frustrated by his elusive prey, ordered a full perimeter lockdown, sealing all access points. Kalen was trapped within a canyon, the drilling platforms imposing bulk on one side, a sheer, unclimbable precipice on the other, and Cathar patrols closing in from both ends. "Target is contained," the Cathar commander reported, a note of satisfaction in his voice. "We will advance from both flanks. His elimination is imminent." Xylos watched the tactical overlay. The Cathar forces formed an unbreakable cordon. There was no escape. Even for a human of Kalen's unusual capabilities, this was the end. His energy signature, though still flickering, showed signs of fatigue. Kalen pressed himself against the sheer rock face. The Cathar advanced, their heavy footsteps echoing in the enclosed space. Their disruption rifles glowed with charge. They were confident, too confident. Then Kalen did something truly inexplicable. He produced a series of small, almost invisible charges, not explosive in nature, but rather resonant. He placed them in specific, almost ritualistic patterns along the cliff face. He then retrieved a modified seismic transducer, small enough to fit in his palm. He activated it. A low, resonant hum filled the canyon. It wasn't loud, but it resonated at a frequency that seemed to vibrate the very bones of the planet. The rock face behind Kalen, though seemingly solid, had a hidden weakness, a geological fault line known only to those with an intimate understanding of Ashfall's volatile nature. The Cathar, momentarily confused by the strange humming, paused their advance. Their sensors registered no immediate threat, but then fissures began to spiderweb across the rock. Small pebbles dislodged, followed by larger rocks. The hum intensified, a deep, guttural growl from the planet itself. The Thaelor analysis engine screamed. "Commander! The human is inducing a controlled rockslide, a complete collapse of the north cliff face." The Cathar commander, belatedly realizing the danger, ordered a retreat, but it was too late. With a deafening roar that vibrated the Thaelor archive chamber, the entire cliff face fractured, unleashing a deluge of several thousand tons of rock and ash. It wasn't an explosion, but a natural catastrophe, triggered with surgical precision. Kalen, anticipating the collapse, had flung himself into a tiny, pre-existing crevice, barely large enough to conceal a human. The Cathar forces, caught in the open, were either crushed by the falling debris or swept into the fiery chasms that opened beneath their feet. The drilling platform itself, though massive, shuddered under the impact of the induced avalanche, its structural integrity compromised. When the dust settled, the canyon was transformed into a chaotic landscape of broken rock and smoking rubble. The Cathar forces were decimated. The drilling platform was crippled, its operations halted indefinitely. Kalen's energy signature was gone, buried under tons of rock. The primary display in the Thaelor Grand Archive chamber froze on the scene of utter devastation. Commander Xylos stared at it, his many eyes unblinking. The Cathar comms feed, still broadcasting, was filled with panic and disarray. A senior Cathar officer, his faceplate cracked, screamed into his comm unit. "Target vanished. Environment hostile. Recommend full planetary quarantine. He's not just a human, he's a demon of this world." Jainara's voice, now devoid of any processing cadence, sounded almost human. "Commander, all models indicate the human's survival was impossible. Yet the Cathar have been routed, their asset neutralized. The data suggests this was not luck. This was mastery." Xylos leaned forward, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the chaos on screen. This wasn't merely a combatant. This was something beyond their logical comprehension, something that defied their algorithms and probabilities. This was a force of nature, wearing salvaged human clothing, wielding a planet as his weapon. No one knew they were looking at the birth of a legend. What do you think will happen next to Thaelor on Ashfall? Will the Cathar return for vengeance, or will they be too terrified? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more humanity, heck yeah, stories. The silence in the Thaelor Grand Archive chamber was as heavy as the tons of rock that had just fallen. Commander Xylos's primary vision plate was still fixed on the paused image of Ashfall's devastation. The Cathar drilling platform, a monument to industrial might, listed precariously, its superstructure twisted and broken. Below, a burial ground of rock and ash contained what remained of their elite pursuit units. Kalen's energy signature remained absent. Subanalyst Jainara's multi-optic sensors had cycled through every possible permutation of the event, yet her conclusions remained consistent. The probability of organic survival under such impact stress is infinitesimally small, Commander. Environmental collapse of that magnitude. It's a terminal event for any biological entity without significant protective shielding. Xylos vibrated his secondary sonic emitters, a sound of deep contemplation. And yet, Jainara, the Cathar asset, is neutralized, their forces scattered, all by a single, unarmored human. A human whose methods defied every predictive algorithm we possess. On the Cathar comms feed, static crackled, then the ragged voice of a surviving officer. Containment protocols initiated. Planet designated extreme hazard. Recommend orbital bombardment if target reemerges. The fear in the alien's voice was palpable, a stark contrast to their usual guttural arrogance. Orbital bombardment, Xylos mused, for a single human. This Ashfall incident is rapidly escalating beyond a simple mop-up operation. The Cathar High Command will not tolerate such a display of ineptitude. He brought up a new data overlay, tracking incoming Cathar fleet movements. Reinforcements are already en route. Not just standard units, but specialized recon vessels and elite trackers. Deep within Ashfall's shattered canyon, the ground still rumbled, settling after its monumental upheaval. A faint, almost imperceptible tremor, the planet's slow breath, preceded the shift. Then, amidst the settling dust and groaning rock, a sliver of darkness, deeper than the shadows, widened. From the tiny, pre-existing crevice, barely wider than a human's shoulders, Thaelor emerged. He was a silhouette caked in fine silicate ash, his salvaged environmental suit torn in several places, revealing glimpses of the worn fabric beneath. A jagged, dark stain marred his right shoulder, but his movements, though labored, were deliberate. He pulled himself free, coughing, the ash clinging to his face, making him appear a ghastly, almost spectral figure. His eyes, though obscured by goggles, would have held a fierce, unyielding light. He didn't look back at the chaos he had wrought. Instead, he reached into a hidden pouch, retrieving a small, battered energy cell. He plugged it into a port on his wrist, and the faint hum of a life support system, minimal but vital, resonated softly. He was battered, but far from broken. He had planned for this. He had known Ashfall, understood its grumbling, turbulent heart in a way no outsider could. He had known exactly where to shelter, where the fault lines would meet and divert, creating that minuscule pocket of safety within the maelstrom. His internal chronometer chimed, a soft, urgent tone. He was on a schedule. The Cathar might think him vanquished, but they had merely paused his mission. His objective remained. Xylos's optical sensors picked up the faint, almost indiscernible energy signature from the depths of the collapsed canyon. "Commander, the human signature, it has reappeared, faint but present." Jainara's synthesized voice had a new tremor of surprise. The Cathar comms went silent, then erupted in a guttural cacophony. Impossible! The target is inert. Our sensors confirm zero life signs. Xylos leaned forward. Adjust thermal filters. Compensate for extreme particulate matter and residual geothermal emissions. Calibrate for biological heat signature fluctuations. The screen shimmered, filters applied. Kalen's outline solidified, a ghostly thermal image moving through the rubble. He was limping, favoring his right leg, but he was moving. Towards the northern plains, away from the crippled drilling platform, deeper into Ashfall's hostile, untamed heart. He's heading for the volcanic spires, Jainara reported, her voice laced with incredulity. That sector is unstable. Constant atmospheric disturbances, unpredictable lava flows, and extremely high radiation from exposed mineral veins. The Cathar avoid it even for short-duration reconnaissance. Precisely, Xylos rumbled. A logical choice for someone who wields the planet as a weapon. He moves towards greater instability, greater unpredictability. A place where their conventional tactics are useless. The Cathar, recovering from their shock, deployed their new assets. 3 sleek black vessels, designed for stealth and rapid deployment, entered Ashfall's upper atmosphere. These were the Shadow Stalkers, piloted by Cathar with enhanced sensory organs and equipped with advanced tracking arrays designed to penetrate even the densest environmental interference. Their mission: hunt and neutralize. They were supported by ground teams of Phantom Vipers, specialist units trained in zero-visibility combat and equipped with sonic disruptors that could pulverize rock and flesh alike. Kalen pressed on, each step a testament to his resilience. The northern plains were a brutal landscape of jagged, obsidian-like rock formations and deep, glowing fissures that bled molten rock. The air vibrated with the planet's raw power, a continuous, low growl that permeated everything. Ashfall's skies were a perpetual twilight, but here, the light was even dimmer, choked by thick, oily plumes rising from immense thermal vents. He moved with a hunter's instinct, not just surviving, but adapting. He tasted the air, deciphering the subtle chemical signatures that heralded changes in atmospheric pressure or impending gas eruptions. He listened to the groan of the planet, discerning the subtle shifts in seismic resonance that foretold a new fault opening or a hidden geyser bursting forth. He was a conductor, and Ashfall was his orchestra. The Shadow Stalkers were tenacious. Their multispectral sensors, designed to see through the very environmental noise Kalen had previously exploited, began to pick up faint traces. They sent down probes, small, agile drones that could navigate the treacherous terrain. Their specialized optics designed to differentiate Kalen's unique biological signature from the planet's heat. Kalen felt their presence, an insidious hum in the back of his mind, not a sound, but a feeling of being watched, analyzed, categorized. He wasn't surprised. He knew the Cathar would retaliate with overwhelming force and new strategies. He arrived at the edge of a vast, steaming canyon, a chasm so wide its bottom was lost in perpetual, sulphurous mist. Across it, barely visible through the haze, was a towering structure. It wasn't Cathar in origin. It was ancient, monolithic, a spire of impossibly smooth, dark material rising into the roiling skies. This was his true objective. The Theronian Nexus, a pre-collapse Galactic-era data repository, long abandoned, rumored to contain schematics for advanced environmental terraforming technologies. Technologies that could potentially reshape a world or, in the wrong hands, shatter one. He needed them not just for survival, but for the future. The Phantom Vipers, led by a ruthless Cathar commander known as Vorlag, were closing in. Vorlag had studied the Ashfall incident reports. He dismissed the demon theories. This human was an anomaly, yes, but an explainable one. He believed Kalen was merely adept at exploiting predictable environmental patterns. Vorlag was determined to prove that logic and brute force would prevail. His Vipers, equipped with disruptor shields and specialized grappling claws for scaling impossible terrain, descended into the canyon, flanking Kalen's position. Kalen looked at the ancient spire, then at the approaching Cathar, their sonic disruptors already charging, emitting a low, dangerous thrum that vibrated the ground. He was trapped against the canyon edge, no conventional escape, no immediate vents to trigger. This was the turning point. Commander Xylos, Jainara's voice was strained. The human is boxed in. Phantom Viper units are deploying. Their sonic disruptors will collapse the canyon walls around him. He has nowhere to go. Xylos zoomed in. Kalen appeared to be inspecting the canyon wall, not for fissures, but for something else. He ran a gloved hand over the smooth, ancient rock of the spire's base, then down to the bubbling magma below. Vorlag's voice cut through the Cathar comms, triumphant. Human target is contained. Prepare for final neutralization. Kalen closed his eyes for a moment, listening. Not to the Cathar, but to the deep, resonant hum of Ashfall itself. He pulled out a new device smaller than the seismic initiator, almost jewel-like. It pulsed with a soft, internal light. It wasn't designed to trigger a geological event, but to amplify one. To resonate with the planet's natural frequency. He pressed the device against the ancient spire's base, not into a fissure, but directly onto the smooth, dark rock. A high-pitched, almost inaudible whine filled the air, detectable only by Kalen's modified internal sensors. It was a frequency that traveled through solid rock, through molten lava, through the very fabric of the planet. The Cathar Vipers hesitated. Their advanced sensors flickered erratically. Their sonic disruptors, designed to emit coherent, focused waves, began to emit distorted, chaotic frequencies. A few Vipers clutched their helmets, their multifaceted eyes wide with confusion. The very air around them seemed to shimmer, distorting their vision. "What is this?" Vorlag roared, his own internal comms crackling with static. "Sensors are failing, environmental interference." Kalen wasn't causing an explosion. He was creating a targeted, resonant field that subtly disrupted the Cathar's highly complex technology. The frequencies, attuned to Ashfall's natural seismic and atmospheric hums, interfered with their sensor arrays, their comms, even their personal energy shields, causing microscopic-level resonant vibrations that slowly, imperceptibly, began to dismantle them from within. Their sonic disruptors, now uncontrolled, unleashed chaotic bursts of energy, tearing at the canyon walls randomly, sometimes even striking their own units. The Cathar, built for precision, were thrown into disarray. Their enhanced sensory organs, usually an advantage, became a liability, overwhelmed by the chaotic, painful frequencies resonating through the environment. Kalen, meanwhile, began to climb the ancient spire. The shimmering field of resonant energy, invisible to the naked eye, seemed to part before him, making the impossibly smooth surface viable for ascent. The vibrations, though chaotic to the Cathar, were controlled by him, creating micro-fissures and footholds only he could perceive, only he could utilize. He wasn't just climbing a rock face, he was coaxing the very structure of the spire to aid his ascent. "Their technology is collapsing," Jainara exclaimed, her voice conveying a mix of terror and fascination. "The human isn't just triggering events, Commander, he's resonating with the planet's fundamental frequencies to unravel Cathar systems. This is beyond environmental weaponization. This is ecological warfare at a submolecular level." Xylos watched, his multiple eyes wide with a new understanding. This wasn't merely a harsh worlder. This was something entirely unique. Kalen wasn't just adaptable, he was an extension of the extreme environment, a conduit through which its raw, untamed power could be channeled and directed. He was a creature of Ashfall itself. Vorlag, witnessing his elite unit disintegrate into a confused, malfunctioning mess, screamed into his comm. Fall back, this is not a human." This is a sentient planetary defense mechanism. But it was too late. Kalen, now high on the spire, reached a small, recessed entrance, half buried by eons of volcanic ash. He didn't force it open. Instead, he pressed the resonant device against it, and with a low, almost musical hum, the ancient portal slid open, revealing an inkai blackness within. He glanced down at the chaotic scene below, at the Thaelor phantom vipers, still reeling from the resonant assault, some even collapsing as their internal systems failed. Vorlag, alone, was staring up at him, a glint of genuine terror in his multifaceted eyes. Kalen, covered in ash, his form still spectral against the roiling skies, stepped into the ancient darkness, the humming device still clutched in his hand. The portal began to close, slowly, inexorably. Before it sealed shut, Kalen's voice, raw and amplified by some unknown mechanism, echoed across the canyon. It wasn't a roar, but a low, dangerous whisper that seemed to vibrate the very ground beneath the Thaelor's feet. "This isn't your world to take." The portal hissed shut, leaving the Thaelor commander alone, staring at the impassive, ancient spire. Kalen's energy signature vanished once more, but this time it was a deliberate withdrawal, not a consequence of an attack. He was inside the legendary Theronian Nexus, an ancient repository rumored to contain secrets that could shift the balance of galactic power. What new horrors, or perhaps, what new legends would Kalen unleash from within its depths? Want to know what Kalen finds inside the Theronian Nexus, and how he plans to use it against an entire galactic power? The answer might surprise you, just like discovering that a single grain of sand can become a weapon. Don't miss Part 3, subscribe now and join the humanity, heck yeah! Revolution! The Inkai blackness inside the Theronian Nexus was not a void, but a deep, resonant silence that pressed in on Kalen, dampening even the faint hum of his life support. The air was cool, stale, tasting of ancient metal and dormant power. His hand, still clutching the resonant device, found no immediate purchase on the smooth, internal walls that had sealed behind him. He was alone, adrift in an abyss of forgotten technology. He activated his helmet lamp, its beam cutting through the profound darkness to reveal a vast, cavernous space. Towering structures, impossibly slender and intricate, rose into the unseen ceiling, adorned with luminous conduits that pulsed with an almost imperceptible energy. The architecture was Theronian, unmistakable in its elegant complexity, designed for beings who thought in terms of cosmic cycles and planetary engineering. Kalen knew this place from the fragmented data he had scavenged from various Alliance outposts and forgotten academic archives. The Theronian Nexus was a myth, a legend, a data vault built by a civilization that vanished millennia ago, leaving behind wonders and enigmas. Rumors said it contained the pinnacle of their understanding, including the terraforming schematics he so desperately sought. He moved cautiously, his injured leg protesting with a dull ache. The floor beneath his worn boots was polished to a mirror sheen, reflecting the faint glow of his lamp into an endless array of false pathways. This place was not designed for simple navigation. It was a puzzle, a labyrinth of knowledge and forgotten safeguards. Suddenly, the air shimmered. A low, harmonic chord resonated through the cavern, not from an external source, but from the very walls around him. Luminescent pathways, previously unseen, pulsed into existence on the floor, forming intricate geometric patterns. They led deeper into the Nexus, into what appeared to be a central chamber. Kalen pressed the resonant device against one of the glowing pathways. The device hummed in response, its internal light intensifying, almost mirroring the ancient Theronian energy signatures. He understood. The Nexus wasn't simply a vault. It was a living archive, and his device, crafted from scavenged Theronian components and adapted with his own intimate understanding of resonant frequencies, was the key to its awakening. He was speaking its language. He followed the illuminated path, the harmonic hum growing stronger with each step. The air around him crackled with building energy. He passed through shimmering veils of light that momentarily dissolved his thermal signature, making him a ghost even to his own internal sensors. These were ancient security measures designed to filter out unauthorized entities, to cleanse and analyze. But Kalen was not just an intruder. He was a living resonance, attuned to the very vibrations of the Theronian technology. The Nexus recognized something in him, an echo of its creator's mastery over environmental forces. Meanwhile, Commander Xylos watched, captivated and increasingly concerned, from the Thaelor Grand Archive. Kalen's energy signature, though still faint, was now fluctuating with complex, artificial harmonics. The human is interfacing with the Nexus, Commander. Jainara's voice, a blend of wonder and alarm, filled the chamber. His signature is resonating with Theronian power conduits. This is unprecedented. No known species has ever successfully bypassed the Nexus's primary security protocols. On Ashfall's surface, Cathar Commander Vorlag was still reeling from the unexpected humiliation. His phantom vipers were pulling back, their systems sporating, their morale fractured. The shadow stalkers, high above, were struggling to re-establish stable sensor locks on the area around the ancient spire. This cannot stand. Vorlag snarled into his comm unit, his voice thick with frustration and barely controlled fury. A single human defeating an elite Cathar deployment with a planet. It is an affront to the hegemony. His superior, a general of the Cathar hegemony, known only as K'artak, a tactical genius and a strategist of unparalleled ruthlessness, responded with cold precision. Vorlag, your report indicates an unacceptable tactical failure. The target has breached the Theronian Nexus. This escalates the situation beyond a simple mop-up. The Nexus contains dangerous, pre-collapse schematics. If the human accesses them, it could destabilize the entire sector. We will now initiate Protocol Omega. Xylos's optical sensors widened. Protocol Omega. That was the Cathar's ultimate planetary suppression doctrine. It meant they were bringing in their heavy assets, their planet crackers, their orbital siege platforms, for one human. The Thaelor commander felt a chill that transcended biological temperature regulation. This Kalen, this harsh-worlder, had just painted a target on Ashfall visible across the entire galactic arm. Inside the Nexus, Kalen finally reached the central chamber. It was a vast, circular space, domed by a sky of swirling, ethereal light. In the center stood a colossal crystalline structure, humming with suppressed power. Around it, holographic projections flickered into life, displaying schematics, equations, and complex environmental models of entire star systems. This was it. The Theronian data core, the secrets to reshaping worlds. He placed his resonant device on a glowing pedestal near the crystal. The device pulsed with a blinding light, synchronizing with the Nexus. A jolt of energy surged through him, not painful but invigorating, as if he were plugging into the very heartbeat of the ancient machine. Images, data streams, and forgotten knowledge flooded his mind, a torrent of information so vast it threatened to overwhelm him. He saw planets reshaped, atmospheres forged, tectonic plates calmed or stirred to life. He saw the very essence of creation and destruction, not as abstract concepts, but as precise, quantifiable energies. His eyes, behind the goggles, were wide with understanding. This wasn't just data, it was a living, interactive compendium. The Nexus wasn't just showing him how the Theronians terraformed, it was teaching him, imparting an intuitive grasp of the energies, the frequencies, the resonance patterns needed to wield such power. He was learning to speak the language of planets themselves. Then, a warning flared across the holographic displays. External breach detected. Cathar orbital bombardment initiated. Xylos's chamber was now a cacophony of alarms. The Thaelor Grand Archive's main screen showed a terrifying fleet descending upon Ashfall. KR-TAC's flagship, the Oblivion's Scythe, a vessel capable of obliterating entire planetary crusts, was leading the assault. The Thaelor are not just neutralizing the human, Jainara reported, her voice laced with dread. They are cleansing the planet. Ashfall itself is to be annihilated to prevent this knowledge from spreading. Kalen felt the deep, resonant tremor through the Nexus floor. The planet was groaning under the immense pressure of the descending fleet. Orbital bombardment. They weren't just here to defeat him, they were here to erase Ashfall. The Thaelorian Nexus, however, had its own defenses, or perhaps its own last will. The crystalline structure in the center of the chamber began to hum louder, its light intensifying, mirroring the energies Kalen was now instinctively channeling. A new set of schematics appeared, superimposed over the terraforming data, defense protocols designed to protect the Nexus from existential threats. Not conventional weaponry, but environmental counters, global seismic resonance, atmospheric repatterning, magnetospheric distortion. Kalen understood. The Nexus offered him a choice: access the terraforming data and flee, or use its full might to defend itself, and by extension, Ashfall. He looked at the descending fleet, the Thaelor's intent clear in the blinding light of their energy weapon charges already building. He looked at the ancient schematics, not just for terraforming, but for planetary resilience, for turning a world into an impenetrable fortress. He didn't hesitate. His purpose had shifted. It was no longer about survival or even just retrieving data. It was about defending this world, his refuge, from a truly destructive force. He placed both hands on the crystalline structure, channeling the energy of his resonant device directly into the Nexus's core. The surge was immense, almost overwhelming, but Kalen, the harsh worlder who had learned to dance with thermal vents and weaponized seismic tremors, embraced it. He became a conduit, a living bridge between the ancient Thaelorian power and the raw, untamed fury of Ashfall. The Nexus roared to life, not with sound, but with pure, resonating energy. The internal lights pulsed in sync with Kalen's own accelerating heartbeat. Ancient systems, dormant for eons, awoke with a shudder. The Thaelorian defense protocols, designed to protect the very knowledge he was now wielding, activated. On the Thaelor Grand Archive screen, Ashfall, previously a target for annihilation, began to change. Its thin, ash-choked atmosphere began to churn with unprecedented ferocity. Magnetic fields, previously localized and weak, began to fluctuate wildly, throwing the Thaelor fleet's targeting systems into disarray. General KR-TAC's voice boomed over the Thaelor comms, laced with utter disbelief. "What is this? Our targeting arrays are failing. The planet's magnetic poles are shifting. This is impossible." Jainara was screaming data at Xylos, her synthesized voice barely containing a raw primal terror. "Commander, the Nexus is generating a global resonant field. It's amplifying Ashfall's natural seismic and magnetic energies. The planet, it's turning into a weapon, a planetary-scale disruptor." The Thaelor capital ships began to drift, their thrusters fighting against unseen currents of resonant energy. Their shields, designed to deflect plasma and kinetic rounds, were being torn apart by the chaotic, internal vibrations generated by Ashfall itself. Warning lights flared across their bridges. The Oblivion's Scythe unleashed its primary annihilation beam, a colossal lance of pure energy designed to scour planetary surfaces. But as it descended, it met a newly formed phenomenon, a towering, shimmering pillar of pure, superheated plasma erupting from one of Ashfall's largest, previously stable volcanoes. Kalen had tapped into the core's thermal energy, not just for a localized vent, but for a global eruption. The Thaelor beam, instead of impacting the planet, was deflected, fractured, and scattered into harmless light by the plasma column, which was now vibrating with the Nexus's resonant energy, making it an unstable, impenetrable barrier. General KR-TAC watched in horror as his fleet was tossed and turned by the enraged planet. His tactical display showed multiple ships losing power, their systems overloaded by the resonant frequencies emanating from Ashfall's core. This was not a battle. It was a planetary tantrum orchestrated by a single human. Kalen, eyes fixed on the crystalline core, felt the connection deepen. He wasn't just activating a system, he was becoming one with the planet. He felt the magma rivers, the tectonic plates grinding, the atmospheric currents swirling. He felt Ashfall's raw, untamed power flow through him, ready to be wielded. He unleashed another surge. This time, across the entire planetary surface, thousands of previously dormant thermal vents roared to life, not in isolated geysers, but in coordinated rhythmic pulses, like the beating heart of an enraged titan. The plumes of superheated steam and corrosive ash reached into the upper atmosphere, forming an impenetrable, chaotic shield. The Thaelor fleet, caught between the atmospheric chaos and the magnetic distortions, began to fall apart. Frigates spiraled out of control. Cruisers shuddered and broke apart as their structural integrity failed under the unseen resonant stresses. The Oblivion's scythe itself was being pushed back, its mighty engines struggling against the amplified solar winds and magnetic flux generated by Ashfall's newly weaponized magnetosphere. "This is beyond our capabilities." K'Artak roared, his voice laced with the first hint of genuine fear. "This is not a human combatant. This is a planetary entity. He is reshaping the environment into a sentient weapon. Retreat. All units retreat, immediately." The Thaelor fleet, broken and demoralized, began a desperate, uncoordinated withdrawal, their primary objective of planetary annihilation replaced by a frantic scramble for survival. They had encountered a legend, and it was a world animated by a single human. Inside the Nexus, Kalen slowly withdrew his hands from the crystalline core. The overwhelming rush of data, the feeling of communion with the planet, receded, leaving him exhausted but exhilarated. The Theronian data had been fully assimilated. He now possessed not just the schematics for environmental terraforming, but the deep, intuitive understanding of planetary energies, how to harness them, how to amplify them, and how to turn them into an ultimate defense. He had truly mastered the art of ecological warfare. The Nexus hummed softly, a contented thrum, as if it had fulfilled its purpose after eons of waiting. The entrance behind Kalen, previously sealed, now glowed with a soft, inviting light. He had achieved his mission. He had survived. And he had driven back an entire Thaelor fleet, not with weapons, but with the very breath of a world. But the fight was far from over. General K'Artak, though forced to retreat, would not forget this humiliation. He would return with greater numbers, with new strategies, determined to neutralize the threat Kalen posed and to claim the secrets of the Theronian Nexus. Kalen had just demonstrated humanity's ultimate adaptability, turning a harsh world into an unconquerable fortress. But what would happen when the entire galaxy saw the footage? And what would he do next, now that he could truly reshape a planet? The war for Ashfall, and perhaps for the very future of planetary control, had just begun. Don't you just love how humans turn literally everything into a weapon? Next time you see a seemingly barren rock, remember Ashfall and its legendary guardian. What do you think the Thaelor will throw at Kalen next, now that he controls an entire planet? Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss the epic conclusion in Part 4. Humanity, heck yeah! The silence in the Thaelor Grand Archive chamber was not just the absence of sound, it was the heavy quiet of disbelief. Commander Xylos watched as the Thaelor fleet, moments ago a symbol of overwhelming might, crumbled and scattered under the unleashed fury of Ashfall. The screen showed the Oblivion's scythe, its colossal form now battered, its primary annihilation beam flickering into impotent discharge, struggling to turn its damaged hull away from the raging planet. Smaller vessels, less fortunate, simply disintegrated, not from direct fire, but from the unseen planet-wide resonance Kalen had orchestrated. General K.R. Tak's final broadcast was a guttural snarl of terror and retreat, laced with a new, chilling assessment. He is not merely a human. He is a sentient planetary entity, a force of nature. Subanalyst Jainara's multi-optic sensors word, processing the impossible. Her synthesized voice, usually precise, was now tinged with a raw, almost fearful wonder. Commander, the Thaelor fleet is in full disarray. Their retreat is uncoordinated, bordering on a rout. Energy readings from Ashfall are stabilizing, but the planet's magnetic and atmospheric fields are permanently altered. The Thaelorian nexus, it has been fully activated. Xylos leaned forward, his many eyes fixed on the retreating Thaelor vessels, then back to the now calmer but irrevocably changed Ashfall. Its skies, though still choked with ash, now shimmered with faint, ethereal auroras, testament to its amplified magnetosphere. Its landmasses, though scarred, vibrated with a deep, powerful hum that spoke of newly awakened energies. This Kaelin, Xylos rumbled, his voice a low vibration in his chest. He didn't just understand the planet. He merged with it. He made it an extension of himself. Jainara's analysis continued, pulling up real-time data from Ashfall's surface. The Nexus's core output confirms a full data assimilation by the human. Environmental manipulation schematics, planetary resilience protocols, even atmospheric genesis models, all transferred. This goes beyond understanding, Commander. He didn't just learn. He became the architect. On the battle-ravaged surface of Ashfall, Kaelin stood at the ancient portal of the Thaelorian nexus. The hum of the massive crystal inside had subsided, leaving him with an immense exhaustion, but also an unparalleled clarity. He was no longer simply a harsh worlder adapting to a hostile environment. He was the environment's master, its protector, its living conduit. The power of the Nexus flowed through him not as a burden, but as an integral part of his being. He felt the pulse of the molten core, the grinding of the tectonic plates, the whisper of the winds, all as extensions of his own senses. He was Ashfall, and Ashfall was him. He stepped out of the Nexus, the ancient portal sealing smoothly behind him, leaving no trace of its existence. The air outside was still thick with ash, but now a subtle, almost imperceptible shift was occurring. New, nascent atmospheric currents, gentle but persistent, began to stir, coaxing the particulate matter towards the upper strata where it would dissipate. Small, glowing fissures, precise and controlled, opened in the rock around the spire, releasing not corrosive gases but pure geothermally heated steam that cleansed the air. Kaelin was not merely reacting to the planet, he was shaping it. His battered environmental suit still bore the marks of his struggles, but his gaze, though weary, held a fierce, unbreakable resolve. He looked towards the horizon, where the Thaelor fleet had vanished, leaving only streaks of dying energy in the upper atmosphere. They had learned a lesson, a brutal, unforgettable lesson about a human who turned a world into a weapon. Back in the Thaelor Grand Archive, Commander Xylos watched Kaelin, a lone figure amidst a planet he had just saved and redefined. The footage shifted, showing Thaelor strategic channels now awash with frantic communications. Initial reports were being compiled, but the tenor of their analysis had undergone a profound shift. Ashfall was no longer categorized as a mineral asset or a fringe outpost. It was now designated Sector 0, unconquerable. A forbidden zone, and the human he was simply labeled the conduit. A new entity, beyond their comprehension, beyond their military doctrines. Jainara projected a new probabilistic model. Commander, based on the Thaelor's internal communications, their fear is not solely of the Nexus's capabilities. It is of Kaelin's ability to weaponize it, to integrate with it. They perceive him as a new form of bioenvironmental combatant. Their historical records show no precedent for such a capability. They now classify him as an Omega-level threat, a planetary-scale deterrent. Omega level, Xylos mused, a designation usually reserved for supermassive black holes or rogue stellar events. For a single, unarmored human, the irony was palpable. His multifaceted eyes cycled through images of Kalen's journey. The single spike against the drone, the microseismic event against the skirmisher, the induced rockslide, and finally, the harnessing of an entire planet to repel a fleet. Each act, a testament to an intuition so profound, it bordered on the supernatural. They called him a demon of that world, Jainara reported, referencing the Cathar's earlier panicked broadcast. Now they call him an entity. Their strategic shift is absolute. They will not attempt re-engagement with Ashfall directly. They deem any further assault a planetary-scale suicide mission. They have lost more than ships. They have lost their tactical hubris. This is a complete re-evaluation of humanity, Xylos concluded, his voice a low, resonant hum. Not as a fragile, adaptable species, but as a force capable of becoming one with the most hostile environments. A species that, when pushed, can coax an entire world to fight alongside it. The Cathar believed they were battling a rogue human. They were, in fact, witnessing the birth of a legend, a new paradigm of existence. On Ashfall, Kalen moved with a newfound purpose. He began to explore the planet not as a survivor, but as a sovereign. He walked through fields of shifting obsidian, the ground humming beneath his feet in a way only he could feel. He touched the walls of ancient lava tubes, sensing the slow, deliberate flow of molten rock beneath the surface, a power he could now guide. His first task was to begin the subtle, long-term terraforming of Ashfall, not into a lush paradise, but into a planet perfectly attuned to his resonant control, a living fortress, a sanctuary for anyone brave enough to call it home. The Nexus had not just given him data, it had given him an understanding of life at a planetary scale. He could feel the needs of Ashfall, its desires for stability, for life, however harsh. And he, Kalen, the human who had learned to dance with thermal vents, would answer. The Cathar High Command, though deeply shaken, would undoubtedly regroup. General Kartak would never forget this humiliation, this crushing defeat at the hands of a single human. He would search for weaknesses, for a way to counter a threat that defied all logic. But Kalen had bought time and time on a planet that was now his to command, meant endless possibilities. What would he do with his newfound planetary mastery? Would he merely stand guard over Ashfall, transforming it into an unassailable bastion? Or would his legend, the footage of an entire fleet broken by a single human and a weaponized world, spread across the stars, inspiring others, perhaps even challenging the established galactic order? The harsh-worlder from Ashfall had not merely survived, he had become a new force in the cosmos, a living testament to humanity's boundless potential, a legend whispered among the stars. The war for Ashfall was concluded, but the legacy of its unlikely guardian and the radical implications of his unique power had just begun to unfold across the galaxy. If this epic tale of Kalen, the master of Ashfall, ignited your imagination, then don't let the adventure end here. Smash that like button to show your support for humanity, heck yeah! Stories, and subscribe to our channel for more tales of human resilience and triumph against impossible odds. What was your favorite moment in Kalen's journey, from lone survivor to planetary legend? Let us know in the comments below.